like a
I wish
turtle.
you could have done an assessment on him when he was a child.
I was probably better off than I am now.
Tell me about how you were as a
Where
child.
do we start?
Wait, is this an
intervention?
intervention? Am I in the middle
You're
here?
in the corner because you can't leave.
I don't feel comfortable with this.
Welcome to episode 9 of the Tap. Spinal Tap.
Spinal
Tap.
Dear girl, I am a doctor. Doctor.
These go to 11. Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine?
Did we just become best friends?
Yep.
The skeleton ran out of shampoo in the shower.
1.21 gigawatts. This is a house of learned doctors. You're not a doctor.
Okay, well,
Here we are.
Episode 9.
It's nice to see you guys.
The Spinal Tap. Yeah, good to see you.
Thanks for
Always,
being here, Richie.
I'm going to be nice to Richie today. I'm usually
not.
give him jabs, but I think he needs some love today.
I need a more tender today.
He needs some tender hugs
I
and
had
kisses.
a brain scrambling last weekend.
Yeah. So we have
Camping tends to do that.
we have a very special VIP guest today.
VIP.
VIP.
I'm on the VIP list.
Yes, she's official. But anyww, Miss Maddi
Here.
Roberts.
Here
Mrs.
I am.
Maddi Roberts, because
Yes.
we know Luke.
That is true.
Luke.
Shout out
Hey,
to Luke.
Can't forget about you, man. But Maddi is a OT at Sunny Days Therapy,
I am
which
indeed.
now has like 5 locations, did you say? 4?
We are up to, well, it should be 6 by the end of the year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Sunny Days Therapy is not a daycare.
We are not a daycare.
Yeah.
Different
Contrary to
to
other
popular
beliefs.
belief.
What an idiot.
But they're an OT clinic. And you guys have a lot of OTs there.
Yeah, we have
Like-
occupational therapy and speech therapy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which we can, there's branches off of those.
Totally.
With that I didn't even know about until we started like just having conversations. And I'm like, what do you mean? There's food therapy?
Yep.
And there's, oh man, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
So if we're going to make a little tree,
Okay.
OT is like the main trunk, and then like a speech, like is that how it kind of
I
splits?
would say no. They're 2 separate trunks.
Okay.
So we got 2 trees.
Yeah.
Speech tree, OT tree.
Okay.
And then we got branches
Off of those?
off of those.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a good description.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sunny Days Therapy, you guys have a lot of locations and work primarily with the pediatric population, but you do see adults
Yes. Kind of on a case by case basis.
case by case,
Mm-hmm.
but primarily
So you
pediatric.
wouldn't accept me, probably?
It depends.
Well,
How functional are
yeah.
you?
Child,
Adult
you
child.
are man
You
child
are
over here.
technically an adult. You've been a patient since we've purchased this practice.
Yeah.
Even prior to
Even
that.
prior to that.
Yeah, and since then we always have good conversations. Like every time you come in, like sometimes I have to schedule more time just because I'm like,
Come
shoot,
in at the
Maddie's
end of the
coming in, we're
day
just
so
gonna,
we can
like-
talk more.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
like, we're just going to talk about things that you're learning. And I
Yep.
mean, always awesome conversations.
Yeah.
And kind of through that process, you know, we built a good relationship of just having those communications. And with that, like I've brought my daughter, Parker, to see you.
Yeah.
You've been doing some work with her. So,
Yeah, that's been awesome.
It's been really cool. And we can talk about that as
Happy
well.
birthday, Parker.
Yeah, happy birthday.
No way.
Yeah,
Today?
Saturday.
Oh.
1 year. 1 year.
That's great.
But she had some, I don't even know how to label it. You know, I don't know.
I would say like sensory concerns.
Sensory concerns. Yeah.
Dad issues.
Yeah.
It's all from him.
They probably too soon for that.
Fix my kid.
Yeah. Here,
Here you
take
go.
her.
I don't get it.
Fix
She
it.
cries a lot.
Yeah. But we can talk about that, and you can talk about some of the stuff that you've been doing with her. But
Hold
one
on.
thing that we like to ask Dr. Mitch.
What's your origin story?
I feel like a Marvel superhero now.
That's kind of the
Break
motif
out
there.
the costume
moment.
here.
No, we
This
get
is
it
the
all
moment.
like, and then it
Yeah.
goes back to when you're like
Oh, yeah, the
14.
flashback.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, that was a bully I didn't like. I'm gonna do this now.
Origin story. Yeah, I was in high school and I started volunteering at a therapeutic horseback riding
Nice.
ranch down in the South Metro, and I had grown up. My dad had worked with kids and people with disabilities my whole life, and so I've been around that population. So when I was little, he would sometimes bring me along, and I'd hang out and play ping pong with the guys at the group home and all that stuff. So that kind of led into, I knew I wanted to do something, either volunteering or work in the like service field,
ping
human
pong.
service, or ping pong,
Like
which I
Forrest Gump.
could use some coordination help, even though I am an OT. So I was volunteering at a therapeutic horseback riding ranch, and I fell in love with it. I love animals, I love horses, and then pairing that with kids that had some higher level needs, either physically or cognitively. I fell in love with it. Happened to have a neighbor at the time who trained horses to do therapeutic riding. So I came home and I said, what do I need to go to school for to do this for the rest of my life? Occupational therapy, physical therapy, or speech therapy. Go look them up, figure out what fits best with you. And I found OT and I've been running for it ever since.
What was the reason OT outbid the other two?
I think I liked how holistic it was. Not that the other two are not holistic, but we really can work on just about anything.
You have a larger scope.
We have a pretty wide scope. So occupational therapy, I like to say that we're goofy and that we use the word occupation differently than the whole rest of the world. We get a lot of questions of, do you help people get jobs? And
It's kind of weird, like subluxation. It's our own definition.
it's our own definition. Yes, we've created our own
But
definition.
it makes sense once you define it.
It does. So we use
please.
the word occupation to mean anything you need or want to do. Which is very broad and very big.
So it's kind of like Ken when he says I'm beach. That's his occupation.
It's everything.
It's just beach.
Beach. Yes, that is everything all in one. Yeah, so whatever is impacting your function in those things that you need or want to do,
What's the occupation?
what's your occupation? What's your main occupation? Yeah.
Well, and you talked about earlier when we were talking about the two different trees, right?
Yeah.
There's OT and there's speech therapy. Like, for people that are watching this, how would you differentiate the two?
So speech therapy is working on a lot of language skills, communication skills, whether that's verbal language or not, working on oral motor areas. So if those muscles and coordination is not working quite right, that we're not able to produce the speech sounds that we need to, if we're not able to move our tongue the way we need to eat a certain food, then they can work on that a little bit too. Okay. And then I would say even another tree would be that physical therapy, and they're working on that functional mobility, trying to get people, up,
To move
moving, walking, to be able to move.
Do OTs do that?
We can work on a lot of gross motor skills. Again, relating everything back to function, right? So we can work on gross motor skills as it relates to, let's say, like functional mobility. So a PT might work on, like, we got to get this person to walking so they can walk. We might say, I want to increase this person's core strength so they can actually sit on the edge of the bed and put their shirt on by themselves, So it's those underlying pieces that are impacting those functional tasks. Yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of a way to divvy it up.
Yeah.
What kind of cases you find to be most rewarding for you that you're working on?
Oh gosh, most rewarding.
Are they all just really great for different reasons?
I think all of them are great for different reasons. Yeah, I just had a kiddo graduate, and I feel like maybe feeding therapy is one of the most rewarding, because when you take a kid from either just looking at a food and they can't even be in the same room as it to all of a sudden they have a variety of foods that they can actually eat. I mean, that's a big deal. And for parents too, because as a parent, you want to be able to feed your kid and, know that they're nourished and have what they need to be able to grow. And that can be really challenging when you have an extreme picky eater.
Is that what you find? Like, because I'm thinking the interesting thing is, like, a lot of parents just don't know, like, signs to tell. Is it just a picky eater, or is it like they have food aversion where they're just like, I can't be around it,
right?
Or like, what are common things that like people can maybe see in their kids and might warrant a visit?
Yeah, I mean, in relation to food or just other things?
Let's start with food.
I was going to say, let's start with food.
I'm
starving. I think...
Actually, let's order
speaking
something
of it
right
being
now.
lunchtime.
Can you blur this?
I haven't heard it yet.
Oh, my stomach just made a loud
I
growl.
yelled at a
like
patient
dog food.
through my GI system today. I apologize.
Speaking of auditory sensitivities.
Oh my God.
Yeah, let's start with food.
Okay, so food. It can be really hard to differentiate between what we would call like a problem feeder and a picky eater, right? So
Labeling children
more just for
for our purposes.
Yeah.
You're a problem child.
So, kids in general, go through a developmental phase of being picky eaters. You typically see that on the toddler stage. Toddlers are supposed to be picky, you know, like they're going to have strong preferences because they're in that cognitive stage of I'm asserting my independence. And no, I do not want that goldfish, but I will eat that colored goldfish, you know, so they're going to be
Today, not tomorrow.
not tomorrow though. No, absolutely not.
I had my eyes twitching
Statement.
right now.
Because to our adult brains,
Wallace.
it's not logical.
Nonsense. Yeah,
Yes,
totally.
exactly. So, you know, there is that developmental stage of pickiness. And then as we go, typically what we see, I mean, everybody develops a little bit differently, but typically what you see is that willingness to try other things and go, oh, I actually do like that. And okay, so I'm going to eat that. And then, oh, that's similar to that. So I might try and eat that. What we see with kids with extreme food preferences or extreme picky eating is, you know, I don't even want to touch it. I don't want to look at it. I don't want it to be in the same room as me. Or I'm going to stick to maybe these 5 preferred foods because the taste is always the same. The texture is always the same. The color and the shape is always the same. So these are your kids that you might see. I eat Cheez-It crackers. I eat the one brand of macaroni and cheese. I eat, you know, another kind of cracker because, so fruits and vegetables, for example, you get a blueberry one day, it's not going to be the same as a blueberry the next day or even the next one out of the package.
Sons of guns.
So there's some unpredictability there. And if we're already having, you know, some sensory concerns about what it looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like, tastes like, then that unpredictability might be too much for our system. Yeah. So I would say, you know, if we have, so things to look for, if we have a really small repertoire of foods that we're eating maybe the same 5 foods or same 10 foods or the same foods for the same meals every single day and we're not able to rotate and change meals up, I would say that would be a thing to look for too, because if we don't have enough that we can rotate throughout the week, then we might be a little bit limited and we need to look at expanding.
What's the age range where that threshold becomes more of a, like, yes, this is an issue? Because, like, the toddler thing is true. But, like,
Right.
What age group? Like year-wise? Because toddler for me is like, yeah. What
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So like 2, 3, we're expecting a little bit of that pickiness, maybe even a little bit up until 4. But if we're getting up to like 4, 5, 6, 7 especially, you know, I would say things that I like to ask are, does your kid like to get messy? Do they like messy play on their hands? Do they get in with the sand and the dirt and the making mud pies in the backyard and whatever? Or are they going, nope,
thanks.
if my hands are not perfectly clean, it's just way too much for me. Because a lot of the times, you know, so we look at those functional piece. So the functional piece would be, we're not eating a big enough variety of food. And then we're looking at those underlying pieces going, well, why is that? You know, so is it a sensory concern? We do our feeding evaluations in conjunction with speech therapy. Is it an oral motor concern? We can't handle those textures of foods in our mouth because our tongue doesn't know what to do. Our mouth doesn't have enough strength to chew it. So are we avoiding it because we can't handle it and we're gagging on things? Is it a cognitive piece that has entered as we have developed cognitively to go, I do not eat red foods? Nope. Which may have started from a sensory concern. And then as our brain develops and grows, we start attaching those cognitions to
Those
it.
pathways kind of blend a bit.
Yep, a little bit. So
crazy.
it's complex. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot to feeding. A lot of people think it's
Right.
you pick up a food and you put it in your
Right.
mouth and you chew it and swallow it, but I have a steps to eating hierarchy that it's actually 36 steps.
36.
Basically what it boils down to is feeding therapy is we're working on systematic desensitization. So you think about that a lot of in terms of like, everybody thinks of it in terms of phobias, right? That systematic exposure, you know, to something that you fear to get over that fear. In feeding therapy, we're working on that systematic desensitization of our sensory system so that, you know, when we touch something wet, that part of our brain doesn't go, "Wah!" and send us into overdrive, that we can touch something wet and go, okay. And then if it's uncomfortable, I can wipe it off. You know, we have strategies that we can use. So the 36 steps to eating, it could be 32. I might be getting that number wrong, but it starts with the step of, can you be in the same room as the food? You know, can it be on the table in the kitchen and you can be in the same space as it? So it's that kind of sharing space, and then interacting with it. Can we use visual comes next. Can we see it in our space? Are we okay looking at it in the way it's presented? Then can we interact with it, you know, with either another food or a tool like a fork or a knife, or, you know, can we be okay interacting with it at that level? And then it goes all the way up using different senses. I'm not going to get these right in order, but
You don't have to. I don't
smell
expect that.
and, you know, other things.
Well, just knowing like being in the room is like the starting point.
Yeah. And then the ending point is being able to chew and swallow it.
Get it down.
Yep.
I saw
So
a
it's
Maury
all those
Povich
steps.
where a woman was terrified of
Yes.
olives. Did you see that?
Yes. Bring the
There's
olives
and
into
she's
the room.
She bolted.
Dub that in.
Yeah, well.
She's at step 0.
Yeah, she's not.
We are at the introductory step.
For people like that, does it get harder and harder as they age? And
Yes, because we
become
form
adults
those
and-
cognitions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like making friends when we're adults. Just it's harder.
It's harder. A lot of
I
things
don't-
are harder when
I don't
we're adults.
like that person.
Yeah.
Why not? They're in the room.
Right?
You just accept it.
Right.
Oh
As
man.
adults, you're just like, I just don't like them.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
do you break that barrier for kids? Do you like happen to slide like a little piece of broccoli in the room and see if they notice it?
So trick them.
Yeah, but how
No.
do do you put like a picture of broccoli?
Yeah, we might do things where we like we might do like coloring pages, you know, if we're
Yeah.
like at the step where we can't be with the actual food. Right. We might like do coloring pages or let's look up pictures of a whole bunch of different green foods. What do you think we're gonna find?
You just
you know,
strafe
or-
around the broccoli until it.
Yeah. Or we might do, I don't know, I've had kids like go home and do scavenger hunts of like how many new foods or things can you find at home or like throughout the week that you can just see and then come back to me with a list kind
Yeah,
of thing.
I mean, I just imagine like being afraid of a spider and like if that spider's in the room, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
If the
If the spider's made out of broccoli, forget about it.
broccoli spiders.
Ugh.
So in pediatrics, specifically where I am, we talk about a kid's main occupation is play. That's how they learn. That's how they develop. That's how they grow. You know, everything is done through that lens of play. And so that's what our interventions all focus on is through that lens of play.
Yeah.
You know,
God, that sounds like fun.
so I get to go play every day.
I quit.
Pretty great. So, you know, like talking about those gross motor skills, you know, they need to be able to have those skills to crawl and then walk and then climb on the playground so they can participate with their friends. And we do things with social interactions and emotional regulation and fine motor skills, gross motor skills. I mean, everything that can relate back to what a kid needs to do to be able to grow and learn are things that we can work on.
Yeah.
Which maybe is a good segue into Parker, because sleep is another one that people often don't know that we can work on, you know, with it, certain things within our scope, which I know has been a little bit of a struggle with her specifically.
Yeah. That's one of the main things. I mean, she
Yeah.
sleeps okay. It's just she sleeps with us.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And she's a big mama's girl. And
Yeah, she
needs,
is.
as we found out, needs a lot of sensory input.
Yeah, she is. I was saying to Zach earlier, I said, oh, she's a big prope kid. So,
Yeah, you can feel free
Yeah.
to discuss like whatever you want with her case too.
yeah.
Prope?
Proprioceptive.
Proprioceptive input.
thank you.
I know.
Yes.
I did the same thing.
Me big dumb. Me no understand.
Don't know what prope is.
Subluxation.
Totally lux. New term.
How to shorten all of the technical terms.
Oh man, you're so lux today.
Yeah. So proprioceptive input is that, proprioception is that sense of where our body is in space, and then just knowing where I am in relation to other things, other people, things like that. And when we talk about it from an input standpoint, we know that deep pressure input typically, depends on the person or kid, can be calming. Whereas vestibular input, which is think about like your rotational movements and then like linear swinging.
Is that Pacinian corpuscles?
The Pacinian corpuscles would be probe.
Vibration. Probe.
I don't know.
I know. We talked about this
Vestibular
last
is
time.
more with those like that inner ear connection. So that is typically more alerting for our sensory system or our arousal level. So you think about kids coming off a swing that they just spun and they're like, let's do more, you know.
Can you imagine if it was the opposite? How weird that would look.
Just calmed you down.
And it is for some people.
Yeah.
It totally depends on their sensory systems. Yeah, it's kind of wild.
Like when you draw a line in the
Now.
sand in front of a chicken. You ever do that? You see the video? You draw a perfect line in front of a chicken's beak. It will fully like mesmerize it, and it just stare at it
That's
for almost as
fascinating.
long as possible.
Really?
Look, Google it.
Let's test
It's
it
crazy,
out.
yeah.
That is wild. Yeah, so with Parker, we found out that she was what I would probably call hyposensitive on that kind of touch movement processing, in that she wasn't getting enough deep proprioceptive input. And that is a really calming tool for her that we found out.
So does that translate? She needed more to reach that threshold?
Yes, exactly. She needs more to meet that threshold of kind of optimal functioning.
And so what are some of the things that you would prescribe to Zach to fulfill that need?
Yeah. Well, so at her age, since she's younger, it's for my older kids, it's a lot of, big, huge body movements, jumps, crashes, things like that. For her age, it's a lot of those like big bear hug squishes, kind of getting that like big massage kind of
just
pressure
loves that.
all
He's the
up
same
and down. Yeah. There you go.
But like the
Gotta
first
give
time
him a hug.
she saw you, she
Yeah.
was just like,
We were doing pillow squishes.
yeah.
And she was laying down. I was just doing them on
I
her
think
legs.
you told me about that, didn't you? The
And she
pillow
just
squish?
melted. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You'll see
Yeah,
kids
you're
just
like,
go.
All I wanted.
Yes, exactly.
I know.
So we've been working a lot on getting more of that.
Yep.
And that's something that can also help with sleep, because if our system is just a little more revved, or we're gearing up in other ways, or even that emotional piece is, we don't want to sleep, or we want to sleep with mom or dad or whatever it is, that can help just calm down our sensory system, which then can just help prepare us for sleep a little better too.
Yeah,
So
so
what-
we have.
Can I ask the opposite?
Yeah.
Like what's the opposite of that for kiddos?
Oh, like the
Hyper?
hypersensitivity?
Don't touch me.
Don't touch me.
Right. So
Yeah.
how do you what are some strategies? Stop it.
What are you?
Yeah.
What?
So like
asking for you?
instead of the pillow
Asking for a
squishes,
friend.
Yeah.
you like, hey, here's your space to like be on your own, or like what does a kiddo need?
So typically when we get kind of a sensory profile for a kid, it might be kind of a mix of things, or it might be, hey, I'm hypersensitive, so like too much input in certain areas at certain times, and then other times I might not be registering anything, so I need more to get up to that threshold. So on that opposite end, if we have like hypersensitivity to touch, that we don't want the deep pressure, we don't want the typically when I see the hypersensitivity to touch, it's more that light tickly touch, which is another alerting thing for our sensory system. So, you're tickling a kid and they're going nuts. They're laughing, they're rolling around on the floor because it's kind of revving our engine, so to speak. Whereas if you start slowing down, typically I see kids who are hypersensitive to touch do a little bit better with that slower, deeper touch. So we might start with that first. And it might not be a hand. Maybe that's too much. Maybe it is with a pillow. Or we do, one of my favorite things is blanket burritos. I actually tried this with Parker today.
Oh, really?
I think Poppy ended up liking it more, but
Probably.
so you lay a blanket out and have them lay on one side and then roll up like a burrito. And that might be a little bit less alerting for our system because it's consistent pressure all throughout our body. It's a little more of that compression, deep pressure. It's not somebody's hands, which might be unpredictable in terms of what that touch is going to be like.
And if you have a fear of burritos, then you can hit two birds with one stone.
There's no
There you
such
go.
thing.
You're right. You're right. That's
No
just
one
silliness.
fears a burrito.
I think too, if kids just don't have the right type of input for their specific body, what you might see is just a kid that you could describe it as just like disorganized in their body and in their movements. So they could just be a little bit all over the place. They could be over here 1 minute and over there, and then we're on the floor, and then we're up, and then we're down, that, or we're maybe just not, or maybe we're on the other end where we're just kind of timid. And, we're not really sure what we're looking all around. We're trying to check the space out, the people out, what's going to happen. Because our body is just not organized to that optimal level of functioning from a sensory perspective. And sometimes it can just be a kid being a little inflexible and going, no, I do not want to wear this type of pants. And it could be because it's sensory, or it could be, I just don't want to wear this type of pants, And so it's that teasing out that we kind of have to do. And then the other question that we're constantly asking is, well, is it functional? Can they wear another type of pants? It would be a little more functional if they wore more than one type of pants. Absolutely. But can we wear 3 types of pants and we just won't wear the 4th?
Yeah. Sustainability.
Versus we only wear this one kind, one brand.
Just to be able to go and meet an occupational therapist and be like, okay, guess what? Actually, you're pretty good. That's a sense of mind for a parent going forward. We're like, okay, it really isn't these things. We can work with these because it's on the normal scale or whatever it is.
Right.
Should just
So
set
eliminator.
a baseline.
Well,
baseline.
And that would be more on that like population health level,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So that'd be more on that like public health kind of way, which I would love to see OT get into, because we are right now
for sure.
definitely more deficit based, like come to see us if you have an issue, right? Quite honest, I love the evals where I can tell parents, nope, you're good, go home. Your kid is developing typically.
And give them some, like, you're really great at giving tools.
Yeah.
Like, you give really good handouts, and, like, you coach parents of,
Thank
like,
you.
hey, you're doing really good.
Yeah.
Like, but here are some additional things that you can do.
Absolutely.
And then if you feel like it's plateauing or whatever, like, come back and see us.
Yeah,
Whatever.
definitely. Yeah, we kind of can do a graded approach too. So, do we need to come in every week, or do we need to just check in once a month, or, but yeah, I would love to see OT get into even like that primary care type level. So we could be consulting with pediatricians and families and just saying, nope, you're good. Keep doing what you're doing. Or
I mean, it would
easier.
offload so much for
Future.
Yeah.
well, and then providers too. Like,
Yeah.
go see this OT.
Yeah. I know.
Go over there.
Yeah, or just to consult. And, we do a lot of work with pediatricians as is, just chatting with them, with kids that come in to be able to say, hey, we're seeing this. Have parents talked to you about this? Just to collaborate so that we can have that continuity of care. But it would be really cool if we could have, in addition, we could have people at that.
Well, it's easier to build strong kids than to fix broken adults.
It's a t-shirt. I want it.
T-shirt.
So there's research that has come out about play, and typically when you learn a new skill or something new, it takes like 400 times to build that synapse in your brain. If you're doing it through play, it takes 10 to 20 repetitions.
Bingo. Wow. That's incredible drop.
So translate that to a real situation.
So
Like, if you gamify, like, a therapy.
a little bit, yeah,
'Cause
there's some of
like,
that happening.
Chiro and PT.
Yep.
Like, how do you gamify?
Right. How do you do it
Yes.
through play?
Yep.
It's more fun, and you achieve
Greg
your
Levinson.
you get those synapses firing quicker. So an example would be, let's take fine motor skills, because they can be pretty cut and dry. So if I want a kid to build up their hand strength, and they're like, no, I don't want to sit there and use these
Yeah.
tongs. Okay, great. Let's do I'm going to put a game over here. We're going to do some bear walks, getting some weight bearing through our hands to build up those muscles all the way there. And then you have to try to use that precision and that grasp to pull something out. Let's say it's a pop the bunny kind of game. You got to pull that carrot out, and then I'm going to have you come over here and put it in this tiny little hole in the container. So for some of those precision. So, but to the kid, they look at it and go, I'm playing a game.
Absolutely.
Or Play-Doh. Play-Doh's fun. Play-Doh builds hand strength.
It does.
You get
So
two
to
in
like
one.
play
Yeah.
take, it's gonna take
I
10 times
just got
less the
that.
effort.
Yeah.
Like gamifying it like that.
Right.
Then if they were to have them just do like a
a constant repetition
whatever.
or a hand exercise or
Yeah.
something like
That's
that.
why CrossFit is so popular.
Oh,
Well,
I wonder.
the
Maybe.
gamification of it too is more body holistic.
Right.
You're doing bear crawls. That's working your shoulders.
Right.
It's working your shoulder blades, like
Your
your grip strength, your
core,
core.
yeah.
Like you're getting more of a holistic
Right.
movement. Even like taking the rabbit, like they probably have to use their opposite hand to like grasp and like
so you're
do
using
that.
your
So it's
crossing
like,
midline and your bilateral coordination.
Yeah.
And all the things.
like the sensory input that's happening it's just crazy. So
Yep.
that makes a lot of sense.
And that's why we tell people, even adults. I did some of my internships in rehab, and we'd tell people, go knead some bread, to work on that hand strength, go bake some things, go work in the kitchen, do those functional tasks, because that's more of like better than sitting there with putty and doing the same thing over and over again.
Absolutely.
It's more interesting, it's more
And then
exciting.
you get to eat afterwards.
And then you get to eat it.
If you did a good job.
Yeah,
Could
there
be
you go.
terrible. Yeah.
If you needed it enough. Emotional regulation, that's a big one that we have concerns with, that we see a lot. And typically it's, kind of with that sensory input, it's that optimal level of functioning that we're looking at, right? So being able to modulate and regulate our emotions so that we're not either way up or way down. We're in that.
There's an in
middle
between.
ground. Yes, there is.
black and white.
And I think the thing to note too is like we're all gonna have emotions. We all have big emotions. We all have smaller emotions. No emotion is good or bad. I like to work with my kids on, but it's just what do we do when we feel a certain emotion, and if we want to change it, what can we do about it? I think the biggest thing that I have been educating parents on recently is co-regulation. So a kiddo developmentally is really not supposed to regulate emotions on their own until they're around 8 or 9. Up until then, they need to borrow another person's brain, basically, to regulate their emotions, to navigate that, and to know how to find that middle ground again.
So matching the child's anger is good.
No.
Oh man,
Opposite.
You almost got it. You almost got it.
You almost got it.
we're mad together.
Well, like I say, you can have co-regulation. Yeah. You can have co-dysregulation.
I mean, sometimes I'm
happens.
like, Wallace gets mad. I'm like, yeah, let's get mad about this together. It kind of flipped the
could see
switch
that
a little
working
bit.
a little bit.
Yeah, I'm like, F that Play-Doh not
Right.
working correctly.
Yeah, I get it, because then you're like, I understand where you're at.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Let's just get through it together.
Yeah, and there's definitely merit to that. I play the yell game with kids sometimes. I'm like, you are so mad. Let's just yell about it right now. Because it's that release. It's I'm having the emotion, and it's okay to have the emotions.
Yeah.
But just knowing that kids, younger than 8, 9, and then depending on the kid, sometimes older, they need another person. So those kids that we're sending off to kindergarten, this fall, they cannot do that all on their own. They need another person.
I'm sorry, teachers.
I'm sorry. I know that puts another load, but and every kid is different in terms of their threshold with that. But it's that concept of borrowing another person's brain. And so like what you were saying, what I do is sometimes with kids is I'll go down to a whisper, and then they'll have to, and then you'll see them start to whisper instead of okay, can you hear me? Or why are you whispering? Sometimes it just like switches
like
that brain
trick.
a little
To
bit.
get you off of it.
And then, it's that concept of us being the calm so they can come down to meet us,
Right.
which is
Really hard.
so much
What a-
easier said
so
than
hard.
done.
What if you can't find the calm?
Then you model coping skills.
I find another
Then
helper.
you go blame your parent.
Yeah.
Because that's
I'm
their
gonna
fault.
text my father.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's when I start doing deep breaths, partially for me, partially to model it, because I'm like, I need these deep breaths too, and so do you.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a big one. Anything else that you'd like to
How?
touch on?
Yeah. How did they get to
Yes.
her?
Yeah.
I think that's big.
Yeah, let people know how they can find you.
Yes.
The other therapists that you work with, they're all great.
Absolutely. We
Your
have
boss,
an
Rebecca's
awesome team.
awesome.
Is there like a main phone line?
You actually do,
952 223-2506.
Oh, it's right there. Look at this pamphlet.
I got it.
Yeah, you nailed it.
I nailed
or
it.
sunnydaystherapy.com.
We are also on Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, really?
That you can look us up.
Yeah.
And
We'll collab.
Possibly TikTok.
We'll collab.
I gotta check on that.
Nah.
We'll get you. We'll get you pretty
We'll
popular.
find ya.
Yeah,
We'll get you.
yeah.
We'll
We
get you
don't trust
119 subscribers.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Well, I mean, the other thing I wanted to tell people too is that, you know, we do offer free screenings. So if you're kind of at a point where
look at that.
you're on the fence, not sure if it's something that would help, not sure if
Yep.
there's an issue or not.
Use code Midwest Chiro.
There you
Check
go.
out.
You can call our office and we can get in for, we can do,
Just mention us.
there you go.
I always forget that because
Yeah.
I refer a lot of parents where they're like, "Oh, my kids," I'm like, "Hey, you should go see this OT," but I always forget I should.
What does
Hey,
that
they do
look
free
like?
consults.
What's the free consult look like?
So come in for a half an hour. We'll kind of chat about what OT is, what are your concerns, and whether we think an evaluation would be warranted, or whether we think they're on track. And
Do you
they're
do
good.
that over phone as well, or do you prefer? Like, obviously, you probably prefer
Typically in person.
But,
Yeah.
Okay.
We have telehealth available too,
Okay.
that we can
Thanks.
That's great.
do sessions over.
I love
In
that.
5 locations, and they're all in the Twin Cities area.
Yes, so we have Minnetonka, Maple Grove, Waconia, St. Michael, Albertville, newly opened Monticello, and hopefully by the end of the year, Chanhassen, Eden Prairie,
I believe it's Monticello.
Monticello.
It's
Yes.
Italian.
Is that Spanish?
No.
Okay.
So that's what we got.
That's awesome.
We
Yeah.
would love to come see anybody. We love helping people.
I need a cookie right now.
Cool. Well,
That's
Awesome.
That's
Other
a
than-
wrap.
that's a wrap on the tap.
We did it.
Good job.
Happened.
Good work.
Yay.
This is a house of learned doctors. You're not a doctor.